Hey, this is Rachel Rofay, and if you are looking for a way to get more traffic, whether that be to your website, maybe you have a book you want to sell, some kind of product or service, or really anything that you want to get in front of more people, then you definitely want to watch this video because I have been testing and tweaking podcasting for the last 5 months, and it is just an absolutely phenomenal way for you to get more traffic. And that's even if you're starting off with nothing, no assets, no email list, no social media. It's just a great way to get started. And to show you, I'm actually inside my Libsyn account right now, which is where I host my different podcasts. And I wanted to show you that on average, I'm getting between 1,500 and 4,000 listens to every single piece of content that I put out. You can see here my most popular podcast episode I put out less than 5 months ago, and it's been downloaded 4,574 times. My second most popular episode has been downloaded 4,397 times. And if we scroll down, you can see a ton that were listened to over 3,000 times, a ton that were listened to over 2,000 times, and again, an average of 1,500 to 4,000 downloads. Now, my niche happens to be personal development, but it really doesn't matter what niche you're in. In fact, let me show you. Over in iTunes, I'm on the top podcast section here for games and hobbies. Now, everyone on this page is getting way more downloads than me, and you can see there are such niched podcasts here. We have Woeful, which is a knitting podcast, a World of Warcraft podcast. We have woodworking, beer brewing. I mean, if you go down Dungeons and Dragons, knitting, there's so many different niches that are all just doing phenomenal on podcasting. And the other cool thing about podcasting is that beyond just getting traffic from your podcast, you can repurpose the content you create to get in front of even more people. So let me show you what I mean. Over here, I actually took one of the podcasts that I created, I got it transcribed, and I put it into an article and then got it published on Mind Body Green. So already, although I got the thousands of listens for my podcast, in article format, I got another 6.1 thousand likes, 336 tweets, 669 pins. I mean, I got my name in front of all these different people. And the best part was I also had a resource box down at the bottom where people could sign up for my website and get on my mailing list. I ended up getting hundreds of subscribers from that. So I mean, one piece of content, you can have tons of podcasts, but one piece of content, one podcast ended up getting those thousands of listens. It got thousands upon thousands of eyeballs on my article, and then hundreds of subscribers, all for free. So I just think podcasting is an exceptional way to get your name out there and get tons of leverage. So I actually created a course on how I've been able to succeed so much with podcasting. And I wanted to give you a quick walkthrough of what it is so that you can make an accurate decision on if it's right for you or not. So if you decide to purchase Podcast Prodigy, you will be sent over to this page here, which is just the congratulations page. And we go through and I give you a welcome video, show you how to use the course. And here is everything that you're actually going to get within the course. So I broke it up in a very easy to digest way with lots of short videos that are very to the point. I hate fluff, where you can go through and just get what you need. So let me show you and walk you through. So first we are inside the welcome page, and here I just again show you how you can go through the course and then tell you why podcasting, so why it's so beneficial. And then we go over to step 1, which is all about nailing down the specifics. So there's a couple of videos in this step. The first one is helping you set the foundation to make sure that your podcast is as successful as possible. So I don't know if you're creating a podcast because you want to sell more products or you want to get more coaching clients, sell more books, whatever it is. But here's where we lay down the foundation to make sure that your podcast reaches all of the goals that you want. We also talk about how to identify your audience, your customer avatar, and just get yourself set up for success. We also go over how to figure out your general podcast topic and niche something in a way that feels really great for both you and your audience. And we also go over how to figure out the best format for your podcast. So how you can identify if you would rather have an interview-based podcast, if you'd rather do content, or if you'd rather do a mix of both. And then you get a resource, which is nailing down the specifics, all the questions to ask yourself in order to get yourself the answers for all these questions. Because if you can do this, then you're just going to have that really strong foundation for the coming months of your podcast. Next, we have step number 2, which is all about how to create your content. And so in this section, we go over, first of all, what you can even talk about in your podcast. So we talk about how to identify juicy topics that your audience is going to want to hear about. We go over where you can find content inspiration. And then I also show you how you can create a list of 50 plus podcast topics in the very beginning when you're most excited about the podcast, so that you're never facing a blank screen later on. Because right now you get started with a podcast, I'm sure you're going to be really excited, and it's human nature. As you're going on with the podcast for a while, it's going to be more routine for you. You're not going to have that immediate entrepreneur creativity that comes with a new project. So I show you how to harness that so that you have content for a really long time, so you can have a very consistent podcast. And you can also see here within each step, we have a section that tells you how long each video is, so that you can budget your time accordingly, and then also bullet points that are in each video, so that if you want to come back later on, you can quickly find whatever video you want. You don't have to wade through super long videos. I know that drives me crazy, probably drives you crazy too. You can find exactly whatever you need. Here we also have a resource, so a checklist of ways to figure out what you want to talk about. Then we also have how to deliver content that you're teaching. So I'm sure you're going to want to know how to prepare for podcasts that you're recording, how to make sure that they're as effective as possible. We also go over how to reach out and request interviews. So, especially if you're reaching out for interviews to people that maybe you're a little out of your comfort zone, it's hard to go and reach out to them. I get it. So what I did was I created a template that has verbatim exactly what you can say to reach out to people. So exactly how to approach them. This is proven. I use it. Other people have used it. And it helps you start booking some awesome people for your show. And then we also have a template, just a thank you for signing up template that gives people all the logistics that they need, so that you don't need to send a million emails back and forth. We just cover everything right away. So you get that. You also get everything you need to prepare for interviews. So I want to make sure that your interviews are as effective as possible, and so we have a video that goes over all the things that you should consider, and then I even give you a cheat sheet. So download the cheat sheet and just make sure that you get all of the points that I've covered, and your interview will be awesome. Also talk about how to hold the interviews. So in this video, I just go over how you can create rapport with people once they come onto your interview, because I know it can be, especially in the beginning, it can feel awkward when you're talking to people that your first meeting, or maybe you're a little nervous to talk to. So I teach you how you can create rapport really quickly, make people feel comfortable. I even give you the script that I use when I say hello to people, and how I can create that bond very quickly. So you can just open it and read it out loud if you want. Then we also go over how you can record interviews. So my podcast, I actually just record with my Mac microphone, and I don't want you to spend money on fancy equipment until you're actually getting a return from your podcast. So you can use your Mac microphone. A lot of PCs have really awesome microphones now too, so you can make this super cheap when you first get started if you want. So we have all of that. Then in step 3, I go over how to edit and upload your podcasts. So for editing your podcast, I teach you how you can edit the podcast yourself. So if you want to do it for free, awesome. I'll give you some great tools. If you want to hire someone, I even give you the name of my podcast editor if you want to hire her. She's exceptional. Then for step 2, I give you everything that you need for the first time you want to upload your podcast. So I'll give you the links to where to submit to iTunes and Stitcher. You just go to those links, you fill out a few questions. It's a totally free process, and then within a few days, you'll get your approval and you'll be able to launch your podcast. So you get all of that stuff. You're going to learn how to upload your individual episodes later on, and then also the just most spectacular podcasting tool on the planet, which is going to be so good for you especially if you're starting out your podcast. You're definitely going to want to watch that. Then in step 4, I teach you how to post your podcasts on a page or a blog, so exactly what to include every single time you post your podcast. So with this, I also have, just to make it as simple as possible for you, I have my own show notes template. So every time I post that podcast, I include show notes and specific things, which you're going to get right here. Now, this is a faster section, and it's because it makes way for step 5, which is marketing, which is very meaty because I give you every single thing that I know about how to get these 1,500 to 4,000 downloads per episode. So the first thing we go over is new and noteworthy. So new and noteworthy, if you get featured on that, which is actually pretty easy to, you will get featured in front of hundreds of thousands of podcast listeners by iTunes. And this is a great way to build up your subscriber base and get in front of people you ordinarily would not be able to. So I teach you exactly what to do, what the steps to take are so that you can get featured. Then I go over some other places you can market. So we talk about if you want to get your interviewees to go through and spread the message of your podcast for you, I tell you what you can say to them, how to get them to retweet you on Twitter, and just different ways to get as much impact as possible. Also go over how to create compelling pictures for social media. So this is something that I got so wrong in the beginning, and thankfully I've learned how to make it so that you can get your podcast shared on different social media sites. So this is a really helpful video. I tell you about a free tool that I use. This next section is probably my favorite and honestly worth the entire course just by itself. So what this is I have a checklist that I use every single time I publish a new podcast. And every podcast I have, I go and I take a few actions. I submit it to specific sites. Actually, my VA does this. So she'll get the podcast and then she'll start submitting it to all these places. So I create a video explaining everywhere that the podcast goes, and then you also get my outsourcing checklist. So you don't have to waste, the months of time of trial and error that it took me to figure out what the most kind of bang for your buck sites are. You get that right away. So you can either do it yourself or hand it off to an outsourcer and just start seeing as much traffic as possible. You also get how to get reviews on your podcast. So for this, I go over different ways you can get more people to leave a review for you so you can build up more just trust in your podcast. And then there's also a section on 25 ways to get podcast reviews so that you're just totally hooked up on how to get as many podcast reviews as possible. Then in the next section, from now to step 5, you have all these different things to succeed with your podcast and get as much traffic as possible. In this next section, I want you to just scale up and make it even easier and even bigger for yourself. So the first video is how to create content even faster. So we just go over how you can batch up your work and different things you can do to create content with a quickness. Then I go over how you can leverage the hard work that you're doing and just really maximize all of this. So we go over how you can transfer your content into new modalities. So like you saw with the Mind Body Green article, how you can get that into more places, different things that you can do to kind of brag about your podcast numbers and use that as leverage to get into new opportunities and where to mention your podcast. We go over how you can leverage your guests, so in a way that feels good to both of you guys, but questions to ask your guests, how you can get them to mention you on Twitter very, very easily. This is something I have a 100% success rate with personally. Why and how you can build relationships in a way that doesn't feel sleazy or anything. It feels really good and natural for both of you. And then also we go over how you can get data from your podcast. So if you know how to look at your podcasts, you're going to get such spectacular data. You will learn exactly what new products to create, what email subject lines to use, what kind of blog post to write. I mean, there's so much information from your podcast. And so this video will go over exactly how you can do that. And then in the wrap-up section, we just go over, say thank you so much for purchasing the course, and then I give you another tip on making sure that your podcast is as successful as possible. So I really believe that this course is just a phenomenal investment for so many reasons. First of all, it really demystifies the whole podcasting process. And then from a return on investment perspective, you're getting in front of potentially thousands of people. And then from a monetary perspective, let's look at it this way. My average downloads per podcast episode, as I said, are between 1,500 and 4,000. So if you got half of my lowest average, which would be 750 people to listen to one of your podcasts, and you sold them, let's say, a $10 product, and it it converted at, let's say, 1%. Well, that'll be $75 that you get back from that one episode. Now, the reality is you're probably going to convert way more than 1%, and you're probably going to sell a product that's way more than $10, but I'm trying to be conservative here. And then that's just one episode. You're going to have multiple episodes, and you're going to also have recurring sales as people go back and listen to your back catalog. So there are a whole bunch of opportunities here for you to earn your money back, plus get the traffic, plus have something that you can use to create all kinds of new streams of getting your message out there. So right now, the investment for Podcast Prodigy is extremely low, and I promise you that I will be raising it within the next few days. And that's because I'm about to start doing webinars, start speaking from stage again, and for those kind of things, I just have to raise my price. So in order to get the best possible price, I highly recommend that you purchase right now. You will get instant access into everything. So within a week from now, you can be having your first couple episodes ready to go, and just be on your way to having a very spectacular podcast. So just go through below, click the Buy Now button, and then you'll get instant access into everything. And so I will see you over in the members area.